Moza unveiled its mBooster ActivePedal at Gamescom in 2024, proudly showcasing its first ever haptic sim racing pedal to the world. Designed to compete against industry leader Simucube's ActivePedal Ultimate and more affordable ActivePedal Pro, Moza aims to undercut both significantly while striving for similar performance.
At the time of recording, the ActivePedal Pro, which is Simucube's cheaper offering, is over £1,500, whereas the Moza mBooster pedal is actually £799. If that changes, by the way, when this launches, we'll have the correct prices on screen now. The question is, though, will Moza's quest for affordability compromise the overall quality? So let's talk about getting it set up on the rig. Now, you can just simply mount the mBooster directly onto your rig, or you can use it as part of the existing CRP2 pedal set from Moza, which is what we've got on here. If you do that, though, you do actually have to add this extension plate at the back in order to fit the mBooster, so it does change the overall dimensions. You can buy that separately, additionally, or you can buy it as part of an overall package, or bundle, I should say, which includes the existing throttle pedal, the mBooster, the CRP2 plate, and the extension plate at the back for £999. Now, adding this extension plate, of course, at the back does make the whole thing very long indeed. It's actually nearly 500 millimeters from front to back. So if your rig is in a tight space, you're going to have to bear that in mind. This thing is gargantuan. Now, we were initially a little bit concerned about the spacing here, because obviously the mBooster is such a big unit compared to the existing throttle and clutch pedal, but actually it's not too bad. If you mount the throttle all the way over to the right, clutch all the way over to the left, there's actually plenty of space to still maneuver the mBooster and set it up in a way that you like. And of course, Moza also say that you can, if you want to, run 3 mBoosters on your rig. So you can have an mBooster brake pedal, throttle pedal, and clutch, and they will all fit. I think it'll be a bit of a tight squeeze, but they say it'll work, so I'm sure it will. I should also mention that Moza state you can actually mount this pedal inversely as well. Obviously, because it's so big, it's also very, very heavy, you're going to require some additional fittings to do so, but apparently you can do it. In terms of actual physical adjustments, though, on the actual pedals, all you can really do is adjust the angle of the pedal plate using an Allen key. It's very, very simple, but other than that, it's all software adjustments, which we'll come on to in a little bit. In terms of connections, the throttle and clutch pedal do connect directly to the mBooster in the middle with RJ11 cables. There's no need to actually run this through the wheelbase as well. Basically, the pedals will connect together and that runs straight to your PC via a USB cable. So that's nice and simple. All of the calibration as well is done within the Pithouse Moza software, so there's nothing physical you need to switch on down here either. Another thing of note here is actually the sound, because obviously this is an active pedal. It makes a lot more noise than a regular load cell pedal because there's electronic trickery working away, vibrations, force feedback. Moza actually state it'll be 44 decibels of noise. Obviously that gets louder when you're actually using it and using the effects, turning up the intensity. So it's worth bearing in mind. It's not crazy loud when you're actually using it, but I would say maybe during a 24-hour race, for example, you're living in a flat with someone, you're trying to be quiet, you might be wanting to turn some of the effects down a little bit to try and protect your flatmates from waking up to the noise. So that is also a consideration for some of you, I'm sure. So we'll touch on software now, and for the purposes of this review, we're using a beta version of Moza's Pithouse software, the same software that you'll be very much familiar with if you're a regular Moza user. And another thing that you will be familiar with is these firmware updates just working and everything going to plan. So far, no problems on that front with the mBooster pedal as well. Everything has been absolutely fine to update and it's been easy to work with. We do, of course, though, have some new options available within the software. So here we have pedal feel. You can change the pedal force feedback curve, and I can actually change things live and it will change the feel of the brake pedal. So as I'm now pressing the brake pedal, I can feel basically a stepped process. So this doesn't actually change the physical, I guess, implications of what my input is actually doing on the circuit. It just changes the feel of the pedal physically. You can obviously change pedal travel, but we'll come back to that. Natural damping, natural friction, all sorts of settings that are bespoke to the mBooster. And that's the good thing about the mBooster, obviously. All of these changes are done through the software, not necessarily through the hardware. So it makes it very, very easy. That's a familiar thing as well, those of you who have used the Simucube ActivePedal. We also then have the simulator input mapping settings, which does change the actual pedal mapping curve. So that will change the implication of what you do in the game as well. So you can obviously change your braking curves, all familiar stuff. And then of course you have your effects tab, which is of course the crucial one for the mBooster force feedback pedal. You can change 5 different types of effects. So you've got engine braking, ABS, traction control, brake threshold vibration, and wheel lockups. And within each of these you can change stuff like the input levels, the intensity, the frequency, So essentially what you can do is create a unique feeling sensation or bit of feedback for each different element. So for example, you can make the ABS vibrate at a different rate to when you hit the brake threshold vibration, for instance. So one thing I should mention, much like the Simucube ActivePedal, the mBooster brake pedal isn't compatible with SimHub, but that's the thing, you don't really need it to be, because the Moza Pithouse software with this update has everything you need for the pedal, so you can completely tailor it to your needs. And of course, despite all of these effects being available, they're not all available on every game, by the way. You need to find out which specific effects are available on the game that you're actually playing. But you can obviously turn a lot of these off and on depending on what you want. And to be honest, you don't want to muddy the waters too much with feedback. I've learned that by using force feedback pedals. If you have all of the settings on and all of the vibrations on, you're basically going to muddy the waters a bit. You're not going to know exactly what effect is giving you what information, even though you can set them to different frequencies and stuff. So essentially, like if you're driving a GT3 car, for example, and you have ABS, you may just want to have the ABS effect on. You may not want to have something like the brake threshold vibration on, just to make sure that you can actually tell exactly when the ABS is kicking in. Last couple of things on the Pithouse software, you can also of course change the amount of force that you want to put in up to the maximum level, which we'll come on to in a little bit. You can also though adjust the overall pedal travel, so it's anywhere between starting at 3.8 millimeters or ending at 53.5 millimeters. So that's quite a lot of pedal travel. Within that though, you can only have a 32.1 millimeter range. So it's not the full use of it, but essentially you can customize it to what you want and you will find a comfortable space within that. And just finally, down the bottom left of the software, as well as this fantastic little diagram which shows you all of your inputs, brake, clutch, accelerator and everything, you can practice your traces. You also of course have these presets. So if we hover over Formula 1 or GT, you can see we've got different presets coming in. At the moment there aren't many, but of course this is early days of testing. By the time you watch this video there may be plenty more presets, and that will just change all of the effects and the curves to a certain setting which someone has created, which will hopefully be more immersive for the particular car you're driving. So have a go of some of those, play around with them and see what you think.
By this point, my colleague Ross has had them on his rig for a number of weeks, and I've been giving them a good go too, so it's probably time to share some thoughts and show you them in action. Just before we do though, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider subscribing to this Traxion channel if you haven't already? We have weekly sim racing content coming your way, and subscribing ensures that you won't miss a thing.
So let's take a look at some of the individual effects in action then. We'll start off with ABS. It's a key element that a lot of people talk about when they're talking about force feedback active pedals. Now currently the ABS effect works on a set number of games. It works on Assetto Corsa, ACC, EA Sports WRC, Race Room, Automobilista 2 and iRacing. But obviously that'll change as time goes on as well. So the game's telemetry speaks to the pedal and essentially sends data as to when you're actually activating the ABS in game, and then you'll feel that ABS rumble through the pedal. And obviously as we went over in the software, you can adjust frequency, levels of vibration, things like that to tailor your needs. Now that means that you can basically make the ABS feel like it would on a road car if you do an emergency stop, for example, or you can make it feel like a proper race car. It's totally up to you. But one thing that is really impressive about it is the haptic feedback itself. Actually, as you hammer the brake pedal and the harder you push, the more the ABS is actually kicking in, the more you're going to feel that effect coming through. It gets stronger. So that's really nice. It's very concise as well, nice and clear. Obviously, you don't always want to, or you don't always need to know exactly where that limit is when ABS starts kicking in. On most games, it's not really that beneficial to your driving, but in a game like iRacing, there are certain cars where it's really helpful to know exactly where that ABS threshold is, where the ABS kicks in, so you can kind of skirt the line a little bit. And I think in particular on iRacing, that ABS effect is really, really useful. Arguably, a more important force feedback effect than ABS is actually brake lockups, knowing when the car is locking up underneath you. And thankfully the mBooster can give you that information within specific games. At the moment the list is quite short. It's Assetto Corsa, ACC, EA Sports WRC and Dirt Rally 2.0, as well as F124. Now when this product actually releases, that list might be longer. I'm really hoping it is. If not, it's going to hopefully be longer in subsequent updates, because of course the mBooster is relying on the games themselves to send through the proper telemetry for the force feedback to work. But I think this effect is especially noticeable when you're playing Assetto Corsa or ACC. Obviously in ACC the car choice is limited and there's a lot of cars that do have ABS, being GT3 focused, but if you drive like the Maserati GT4 for example with no ABS and traction control, you can really feel the effect coming into play. It's incredibly satisfying. You get this kind of gradual crescendo when you actually go to lock up the brakes. We're going to turn one now. I'm going to hit that brake pedal hard and I can feel it coming in, and then it goes. Got the vibration turned up quite high as well, so I can really tell immediately when it's going to lock. And it's just a good training tool. It really does it gets you into that kind of muscle memory of knowing how much pressure you can apply before you get locked up. I think it's going to help you as a driver. Obviously, when you're driving on Assetto Corsa, whether it's like a super touring mod or whether it's road cars, for example, again, it's going to be hugely beneficial to you just knowing when the car is going to lock up, and not just so that you can drive better on that particular lap, but also so you can build up that muscle memory for the actual feel of the brake pedal. And of course, talking about the feel of the brake pedal, it's crucial that with or without the actual ABS or, force feedback effects in general turned on, the brake pedal still needs to be solid. It needs to be a nice pedal regardless of the electronic trickery. And thankfully, the mBooster is exactly that. It's a solid and secure brake pedal. It's got a dual 200 kilogram load cell setup with a max applicable force of 200 kilograms, which is honestly massive overkill. It's fine to have the headroom, but even in Formula 1, you're talking around about 150 kilograms of brake pressure, and for the average person, for you or me, the average sim racer, even with big legs that I don't have, your maximum range is probably going to be somewhere between 50 kilograms and maybe 90 kilograms when you're driving a hardcore single-seater and you want that firm brake pedal. I think it's crucial that this pedal performs well with or without the electronics, so that is a good thing. It really is just a solid load cell, and of course the best part is it's so customizable. It's not just about those force feedback effects. You can also customize the feel of the pedal, the travel, so you can make it soft and spongy and long like a road car, or you can make it short and firm as if you're driving an Indy car or a single-seater. And that customization through software rather than hardware is obviously just a massive plus point.
Just jumping back to iRacing temporarily, I think Ross and I have both felt over the years that this particular sim is the most sensitive when it comes to braking. It's scarily easy to lock the brakes when pushing the limits and trying to compensate for a lack of front-end bite, so an ActivePedal would be particularly beneficial in this scenario. And to a certain extent, it is, although not necessarily in the way that you might expect. You see, iRacing doesn't output certain telemetry, presumably to prevent cheating and exploitation through third-party software, meaning that some of the mBooster's effects aren't actually available. However, setting up a brake threshold vibration still works a treat, keeping you constantly informed on whether you can increase brake pressure or bleed some off before turning in. The Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, for example, isn't the easiest of cars to drive, but I gained a newfound confidence in its abilities, despite iRacing's odd tyre behaviour frustrating on several occasions. However, this got me thinking about how you can theoretically use another mBooster as a throttle pedal, with any brakes and traction simulated haptically, although only AC and ACC are officially supported at this stage.
Now, a lot of people have been wondering how the mBooster will actually compare to Simucube's existing ActivePedal, either the Ultimate or the Pro, and thankfully, we've been able to find that out. Ross has had the mBooster on his rig for a couple of weeks now. I've had the Simucube on my rig for probably a couple of months, and we were also able to compare and contrast. We've been around to each other's houses, tried each other's rigs, and obviously tried to match the settings, match the particular cars and sims that we would use to see how they actually compare. Frequency of the effects, vibrations, and obviously general adjustability and brake feel. Of course, the most noticeable thing between these two is the price difference. The Simucube is a lot more expensive, and a lot of people will be wondering, can you actually feel that extra price, that extra value in the Simucube pedal? And in short, you can. When using the Simucube ActivePedal, it just oozed clarity. It was concise, it was clear, it was very clean in terms of the signal it would give you, talking about the force feedback effects specifically. The mBooster pedal, obviously the effects are there, they can be turned up, they're strong, but it was just a little bit more muddy in general, and I feel like the precision and the cleanliness of it just isn't quite at the level of the Simucube. And obviously that's very hard to know without testing the two of them back to back. I think if the Simucube pedal didn't exist and you were just using the mBooster, you would just be mega impressed and you maybe couldn't see how that could be any better. But when you do try them back to back, you really do notice that little bit of difference. One particular example of the difference came when we were testing one of the effects, the brake threshold limit. When I put the foot down to 80% brakes with the Moza pedal, I found that there was almost a two-step sensation. Like, you press the pedal down, it would give you a certain frequency and vibration level initially, and then that would drop down a little bit and steady itself. It wasn't like one clean, smooth movement. Whereas with the Simucube, you put your foot on the brake, you get the exact correct frequency and power straight away. It was all completely clean. And it didn't seem to be a software setting either. It seemed like it was just not quite reacting straight away. It was taking a little bit of time to find its level. Hopefully that's something that can be solved come launch, but we couldn't find a solution for it during testing. If we ignore the haptics for a second, both sets of pedals are extremely robust, which is great. I would say the Simucube set edges it slightly on aesthetic appeal, but also in terms of overall feel, For example, when you're driving a Formula car and you set a really solid brake pedal, the Simucube just gives you a slightly more finished feel. Having said that, the software on the Moza, the Pithouse software, is fantastic. The Simucube software is also fantastic, but I think the Moza software is pretty much just as good. There are some other little additional sections of the software that I really like, the Moza has and Simucube doesn't have. But as you can imagine, the more expensive pedals do feel a bit better. I still think though, if this doesn't exist, this is just looked at in a sensational way. Despite all of that, you could argue that these two pedals are actually for totally different people. The Simucube pedal is for those who want the best of the best on their rig, regardless of the cost. Moza with their mBooster are looking for customers who want something like this with haptics, with force feedback, with customization through software, but for an affordable price. So even though they have similarities, this is essentially trying to be the cheaper version of this. It's going to be different people who are actually going to be buying these products. So the fact that this is a lot more expensive and is a bit better isn't really that relevant. So for now, we'll say goodbye to the very heavy Simucube. This pedal still offers a lot of comparable performance. It also allows you to tailor it to your needs in terms of feel, whether that's the travel or the pressure needed, whether it's a single seater you're driving or a GT car. And it does all of that really, really well, even if not all sims support all of its features. Being able to predict when your car is about to lock up or when the ABS is about to kick in is a godsend for high-level sim racers and just enthusiasts who are having a bit of fun. But I would say this also highlights one of mBooster's weaknesses as well. If you're happy for the time sink, if you're happy to put up with a bit of faff and a bit of fettling, of course it's going to be a great pedal for you, especially if you want those haptics. And for casual sim racers, of course it's still a great load cell pedal, but there are other options out there for less money that will do similar sorts of things if you're not going to use the potential of the mBooster. Will this pedal make you a quicker driver? Well, that is totally open to interpretation. I have to say, in personal experience, both for me and for Ross, we didn't go any faster with the mBooster pedal on, or any ActivePedal on for that matter. But what it can do, and what the Moza mBooster definitely does do, is give you the opportunity to become more consistent. It helps you learn through muscle memory how to avoid lockups, where to control your ABS, for example, and obviously adjusting that pedal feel to give you a very consistent feeling underfoot. So it can make you more consistent, which obviously in a race stint can technically make you faster, but it's not going to make you faster over one lap. So where does all of that leave us then? The Moza mBooster pedal obviously has all of the fancy features and adjustability of the best sim racing pedals on the market. There are some compromises made to overall performance compared to the likes of the Simucube that we've talked about so many times. It's a little bit muddier, it's a little bit less concise, but at the end of the day, it's still offering you so many things that most regular pedal sets cannot offer you. And in terms of price, it's more expensive than most regular pedal sets, but it's a lot closer to that price range than the highest level available on the market. So if budget is something that matters to you, then these are going to be worth looking at. What you're really paying the extra money for is immersion. If you're someone who wants to enjoy their sim racing in the most realistic way, experience what it's actually like for a real driver who has ABS in the racing car, for example, this pedal will give you that above pretty much everything else on the market except the high-end force feedback pedals. So that is certainly worth considering as well. If you're already in the Moza ecosystem, the mBooster is a logical next step that's going to elevate your sim racing experience. So do let us know your thoughts down below. Will you be picking up the Moza mBooster pedal? And also subscribe to the Traxion channel if you want to see more hardware reviews like this one in future. Don't forget as well to check out the TraxionGG website for all of the latest news and reviews. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.